face sometimes, and they get.
Is she okay over here?
Yep.
We have some reports first, Gail.
1 minute, half a minute, quarter of a minute.
We have two. Amazon. Going to a 6-pack that we got for
Mhm.
$19.99.
All right.
Nope.
Nope.
Not till 7.
Cody's itchy tonight.
7 o'clock. Let's begin the meeting. So say the pledge.
Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic Michael,
Yes, please, if you remain standing, a moment of silence for our first responders, those that have given their ultimate sacrifice and those that are responding and helping us in all our daily needs and service to us each day, and for our military here domestically and abroad, and also a good thought for our friends and fellow citizens in the Ukraine. Thank you.
John, can I just add one person to that list, please? I'd like to add Ellen Sinclair to that list. Longtime East Goshen resident who just passed this past week unexpectedly.
thank you. As usual, this is a hybrid meeting. We'll have comments from the board, questions and comments from the people in the room, and finally, the Zoom folks. If someone on Zoom wants to comment or ask a question, please raise your hand icon. There's no chairman's report tonight, so we'll go immediately to the emergency services reports. And we have Officer Ruggieri standing in for the chief. You've got it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, East Goshen. Chief Bernard is away on a very important conference in Harrisburg, so I've been delegated to be present and answer any questions and present you her report. Total calls of service for the year for the department for all 3 townships is 1,583, as a significant increase from our pre-COVID years that we've been keeping stats for. To date, this is, of course, February's report. January calls for service in East Goshen were 866. West Town 543, Thornbury 161. So year to date, this time last year, we are significantly ahead. We're averaging what we believe is a 74% increase in calls for service when comparing February 23 to February 2019, which was pre-pandemic. So we're obviously seeing a significant amount of calls for service post-pandemic. It's very unusual and a very unprecedented time for us. In February, some of the major calls that we've had in East Goshen Township, we're seeing an increase in frauds and scams, particularly targeting our silver community. People are getting money from our people, and people are actually complying with their requests. So we're going to do and continue with our outreach to try to curtail that. And we hope that we will make some precedents with that. Some cases in hand for East Goshen, a computer repair scam, a victim lost $15,000. Utility scam claim with an overdue bill, allegedly, victim lost $400. An Amazon return scam, a victim lost $3,700. This is an unusual one, a dating scam. A victim paid a subject $1,000 before realizing it was a scam. So sorry to hear that, but these scams are increasing and are, like I said, we have a high population here in East Goshen of our silver community in the north. That's where they seem to be targeting the most. It's unfortunate. Having that in mind, is there any other questions I could ask for the board or anybody present?
I just wanted to comment. I noticed looking through the reports, I noticed that there are a lot of well-being checks
Yes.
particularly high number in East Goshen compared to Thornberry and Westtown. And I wonder what that's due to. Because you do patrol East Goshen, do you think it's because of do we have a higher population of nursing facilities, and are they in the nursing facilities? Or are they in homes?
Some are in the nursing facilities. A lot of these are mental health related, as you can assume. People from out of town, they're calling somebody, they're not getting an answer. They're from Ohio and they want the police to go knock up and see if they're okay. That's a majority of them. A lot of them are referrals from other agencies like the Department of Aging and the Department of Mental Health Services. But again, post-pandemic, we are, personally, my opinion, we are seeing a significant increase in mental health issues. So that plays a lot of into it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I wanted to, if I might just make some comments on the current report. Excuse me, and relative to some of the statistical aspects associated with the pre and post pandemic. When I look at the February report, and I'm really kind of directing this ultimately to the commission to take a look perhaps when you have an opportunity. Every once in a while, I get a chance to really dig into the blotter, as I did this month, and look. And as Officer Ruggieri reported for the month of February, 1,583 calls for service. The blotter, however, reflects a total number of calls of about 161. So those are, when I look at the blotter, those are clearly matters of police necessary response. They involve, and these included some of the well-being checks. They included things of fraud, weapons offenses, drug offenses, those kind of serious and felony, potential felony issues. But 161 versus 1,583, that's about 1,400 additional calls for service. And I've heard these percentages over the last months of the increase since the and now in the post-pandemic era, if you will. And I just wonder about these calls for service to the extent of the types of calls for service versus the blotter. And I guess one of my questions is, you know, how many of these calls for service might be handled administratively, either by the desk sergeant who is at the desk and overseeing the supervising the patrol staff for the given shift, or whether potentially other personnel, non-police, that can respond to these. It just the variance, the difference between the two. And we don't, I haven't seen that, at least I'm not familiar with the percentage change in the blotter entry type calls where there is an actual, a real response for a potential crime or suspicious persons, in this case also well-being checks. I haven't seen percentage changes there over the over these last these reference points. When we've had for February in 22, we had 900. In 21, we had 770 in February. In 2020, 908. 2019, we had 910, and now this February, 1,583. I heard from Officer Ruggieri the mental health related ones. This gets into the question of these new looks at policing services, the nature of social services. And as we know, Chester County has initiated an aspect of social service response and integrating that with local police departments. I don't know the status of it, but it's a reflection, possibly post-pandemic, and more awareness of
more anxiety, et cetera, in our populace, in our society and culture these days. But I'm looking at these numbers. For those of you that don't know it, the partners of Westtown, East Goshen Township that comprise the partnership for WeGo, of which Thornbury is purchasing services, police services exclusively. We are undertaking a study. We're now out for requests for qualifications to examine our police services from the standpoint of not just staffing, but how we resource our officers and our police services. So this is probably going to take place over the next year and a half or more as we move into a stage of possibly requests for proposals, and then affecting a consulting firm or an entity that's qualified to undertake the study, and then having that play out and seeing what it says. We have no idea what it is. This was probably prompted, I might have prompted it going back now more than 2 years. And it started with the foment with, can't stand the word, that was precipitated by certain groups of defunding. This is not about defunding anything. I can't stand the word, but this is about examining, it's about due diligence. But as I, today, as I look carefully through this current report, I just wonder about that variance between the actual calls that are blotter incidents where there's a potential risk to life, there's a serious crime and related, versus calls for service. I don't know what they all entail relative to the relationship of our police officer resources and other staff that may handle these, or possibly other entities. So as I share that, Michelle, as you a member of the commission, it's an inquiry, and maybe we'll find out more about that from the study in the next year ahead. But it just it prompted me today. And Officer Ruggieri, I don't expect you to respond in any extensive length, but I just want to share those kind of comments because as one supervisor, I just am not comfortable not knowing exactly what these calls for service entail relative to policing, and the need for them, whether they are essential or whether they are, I hate to say this, public relations or what. So forgive me if I've offended anybody, but I'm again, it's due diligence. I'm just interested in that kind of that kind of probative, more informational, that so I can understand it better, perhaps others.
And Mr. Lynch, just for clarification, that number 1583 is for all 3 townships.
Yes, and the 161, Officer Ruggieri, is also for all the blotters, is also for all 3 municipalities in the
Correct. And East Goshen's portion of the pie for February of 2023 was 866 compared to that this month, February of 2022, which was 478.
Say similar statistical.
They are.
Very, a delta there. There's no, very similar. But for those that are listening, I ask these questions again. I use the expression due diligence. It's very important for us to exercise that, whether we're talking about land use issues or whether we're talking about services. So this is an element of it, and it's just something that I think that needs to be understood better, at least by this one supervisor, perhaps all of us. I don't know whether I haven't been listening and those questions have been answered.
I don't think that those questions have been answered. In fact, it is something that we've discussed at the commission level. And I think that when John was on the commission as well, really the question is, are there county services that could potentially overlap and help with some of the calls, particularly with the mental health calls? And that's something that I think that with this most recent grant that the county has received, they're expanding the mental health component.
Yes, as I
So
referenced.
I'd love to know how they're going to help our officers with some of these calls? Are
Yeah.
they going to be able to? And because they're only just now getting things started, barely just started, I don't even know if they've gotten all their monies in yet, but the fact is that we do need to see if there's any way to cooperate with them.
But a step before that, to Mike's point, in any business, if you see a 74% increase, the first thing you do is a deep dive analysis of what the heck is going on. We're assuming that we have an effective police force, and deterrent is one of the things that an effective police force does. And we have month after month of huge increases when compared to pre-pandemic. And I'm not seeing any analysis. So before we go to mental health, I'd like to see some sort of analysis of calls for service to find out, where are we seeing this increase? Is it in fact mental health, or is it, we're helping people in the parking lot unlock their car? Or is it, responding to as backup to emergency services? Or I don't know. I mean, the first thing I would do is a deep dive into what the heck is going on? What,
Yeah. And this has been going on, of course, for months.
Yeah.
12, 15 months at least that we've been hearing these large deltas from prior years. And so it just prompted me today to at least bring it up. I'm sure Officer Ruggiero, you'll share it with the chief. And of course, as the commission
Mhm.
meets, perhaps you'll.
We meet tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I can actually talk to, we can talk about seeing if there can be an analysis done to explain where those increases are occurring.
and we're doing it because it's a public safety issue, right? If crime or calls for service is increasing that much, what should we know about that from protecting our citizens? That we're concerned about the health, safety, and welfare of our residents. So we need to understand what these increases are all
I
about.
agree. Will the chief be back tomorrow?
Tomorrow evening, I believe.
She'll be back in time for the meeting.
Oh, okay, good.
Okay,
All right.
yeah, there's no sense sticking the officer with that.
Oh, no. And Eric, Officer Ruggiero.
I welcome it.
Uh,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just to reiterate, thank you for your comments, and I will return them to the chief as well. But as you know, and Commissioner Truitt will back me up, the police commission receives detailed, itemized, line-by-line reports of what calls for service we receive every month.
Mhm.
So, I welcome you to confer with her, and maybe that she can help you with that as well.
And
We
those,
see
Put
some
in
of,
the
we see
context.
some of those,
Yeah.
but
The
the issue,
analysis.
but the issue is the analysis of comparing historic data with current data. We're not charged with doing that.
I
That would
understand.
be something we'd expect the chief to come to us with, so.
And friends, let me give you
Yeah,
one
that's right.
scenario. We do an analysis and we see amongst these calls for service that there is a particular dominance of one type of call. Well, within the department organizational strata, we have a detective division, we have a traffic unit division, we have a patrol division, we have a school officer portion. I know one of the other local departments contiguous, almost contiguous to us in the borough, amongst their divisions, they have an officer resource division where they include quite a number of areas. But coming back to the point about if there is a large percentage of a certain type of call, maybe it, and in the analysis, maybe one of the indications is a reorientation of some of the officers. And of course, that's when we get into the study of looking in more detail as to how the operations are. And again, due diligence, it's a $5 million element in component in our township budget. It's a $10 million budget for the WeGo operation between the partners. And it's the largest component for either of our budgets. So it's important to understand it while not trying to deflate or defeat the essential intent of the service, but to make sure that that is targeted properly, it's efficient, and we are understanding of just what is changing in our community relative to the calls for service amongst our population and the response to it. So that's all I have to say.
Great. All right. I don't think we have any other questions. Does anybody else in the room have any question for Officer Ruggiero? I thank you for,
questions?
thank you for your time.
Thank you for your
Questions
time.
on
Be safe.
Zoom?
Thank you.
Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
Chief, are you ready? I don't know if Mike has questions for you or not.
Let me just get, I'm just getting warmed up.
I have questions.
We have questions for you, sir.
Right,
Little jocularity helps.
good to see you. Everybody looks well. So the Goshen Fire Company report for February. We had 49 fire calls, 32 fire police responses, and 341 EMS responses. We have 33 fire calls in East Goshen, 8 fire police responses, and 163 EMS responses in the township. One note, our automatic fire alarm rate was up a little bit for the month at 55%. And that was driven by an increase, hopefully a one-off for AFAs in East Goshen. I went through the list. A lot of them were just single occurrence residential automatic fire alarms. And I just think it was, I don't think there's any real rhyme or reason to it. And 2 of the facilities we've had residents of the memory care units pulling the alarms. So we're working with the staffs there to address that. And
Is that something where you can actually somewhat camouflage the pole switch so that residents who are in that facility don't?
Unless there's a fire, right?
Well, no,
Yeah.
but the thing is, staff would know what they look like.
yeah, so work with Dwayne, and the code's pretty clear. It has to be obvious to, any, yeah. I mean, these are literally covered
I was gonna say, are
pole
they
stations.
Wait,
covered?
They're
At some
lifting the
point-
cover, and
At some point, don't we find or
we do.
Yeah, there's
Charge
scale.
Yeah, Dwayne gets my report and he
does
addresses
that
it.
and collects? Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
That's what I want to hear.
Yeah, the codes team's been very good over the years with addressing the issues as they come up.
Grant, I have a question.
Yeah.
The Malvern report, fire company report shows recalled canceled. And just, by way of comparison, the treated, transported ALS is 55 and the recalled canceled is 32 calls.
That's
That's
about
the
right.
second highest, piece of data that they collect. What, do you keep I mean, you're on a fire perspective, I guess, do you have recalls, cancellations, and are they a percentage of?
So Malvern's probably refers to their ALS unit
Yeah.
being recalled. So they're responding primarily into the Hershey's Mill area, and maybe the northeastern corner of the township is where they cover. Our unit responds out of Station 56 at Boot Road, Green Hill Road. They get there, they evaluate the call. They determine that it doesn't meet the needs of an ALS unit, or they can be at the hospital before the medic gets there. There's a number of reasons for it, but it's fairly common to see that recall rate
Okay.
at that level.
Does that relate maybe to the fact that the villages have the first response, if you will, security department, and there's an interface there that says, now we met with, no,
We don't,
you do what you need to
we
do.
get eyes
Yeah, I
on
got you.
every
Okay.
situation.
Okay.
Part of the driver for that is when the county gets the call from the citizen through the 911 center, they have very broad parameters
Yeah.
for making it an ALS dispatch.
Yeah.
You use they trigger off certain keywords that the person mentions. We get there, it's, in many cases, it's not as severe as, as the dispatch type would lead you to believe.
Is there a way for better discernment instead of ALS to just go to BLS? When
mean,
it
we
may
also-
not matter a whole lot.
We ultimately make it a BLS call. If we recall the medic, they turn right around and go back.
Yeah,
It's not really a wasted resource.
yeah.
And the recall rate, so Good Fellowship covers the other, the majority of our district, their recall rate's the same. Even with the medic sitting in our fire station, we release the medic if we don't need it.
I like the colors too. It's not the colors, it's the content. This is what I'd like to see. Come in part, come out of the survey.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, for police services.
Go
Gotcha, Jim.
on, Grant, I'm sorry.
The only other thing I had is, hope to see you all at our flower sale.
Yeah.
I saw, you mentioned the quantities. I saw the order list. It's pretty extensive.
extensive.
Yeah, so hopefully we have 3 days of flowers.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Great
so
place to buy flowers, folks, and help the fire department.
When does it start?
Friday, the 7th. So it's the 7th, 8th and 9th.
Okay,
So it's all day, Friday, Saturday, and about a half a day on Sunday.
okay.
All right, good.
Thank you.
Thank you,
So-
Grant.
Grant, I just have
Thanks,
one quick
Grant.
question. I apologize.
Sure.
I just wanted to hear how is the EMS and the business subscription / donation drive going comparatively to last year?
Great,
Good.
yes.
Good.
I wish and I can bring you probably a
That's
number
okay. I was just
next
curious
month.
about.
We had a finance committee meeting Monday and there was a lot of commentary about how it's doing materially better than last year. And last year was a record for us. So we're hoping that we'll set another record.
No, that's
Thanks,
great.
Grant.
So Grant, real quick, do you remember what the levels are of service, these?
I know the names is like senior family,
Okay.
singles, things
Okay.
like that.
And it's all quite reasonable.
Yeah, it's 100.
It doesn't pay not to do it.
It's
You
like
just- You have to do it.
70 to 100 or something.
It's just too important not to do it.
Yeah. Great support. And
Yeah.
you can also contribute towards our capital funds on top of it. And that's very good as well.
If you are able to provide data, I'd be curious compared like East Goshen residents compared to West Goshen. I don't know if you guys can pull it that way because I know it'd be pretty hard on the checks and
We can do
don't stress yourself out. I'm
Yeah,
just curious. about
um,
it. So thanks,
it.
Grant.
Data's
Great.
my.
Okay,
hobby.
thank you, Grant.
Thanks so much for coming.
Thanks, Grant.
Thanks, Grant.
Derek, you have the fire marshal report?
I do. I will be handling the other two reports, Mr. Chairman, but first I just wanted to give a shout out to our Fire Marshal Carmen Batavio, who is not here tonight because he's actually in Hershey receiving it is a statewide award. It is given by the Pennsylvania Parks and Rec Association, and it is a Citizen Volunteer of the Year award. And again, statewide. It is very competitive and we're all proud of Carmen and hope he's having a good time tonight.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just wanted to
Great recognition.
Congratulations to Carmen.
On to the report for Malvern Fire Company. The monthly responses to East Goshen Township were 24. That was 18% of the total calls for Malvern Fire Company for the month. Year-to-date responses was 68 for East Goshen Township, and that is 21.3% of the total calls for Malvern Fire Company. Good fellowship. Give me a second here. Why not have the?
Good
we
Fellowship is
go.
now under new management, right? Kim has left.
Correct. Kim Holmes,
What?
Holmes.
Homes.
She I forget where she went, but she's somewhere, some engineering consultant around.
That's right, yeah.
And gentleman just started. I forget his name. I got an
You
email
haven't met
about
him,
it. Have
really
not
haven't
met
met
him
him.
yet,
Okay.
yeah. But for the month of February, East Goshen, there was 50 calls for East Goshen from Good Fellowship. That represented 8.8% of the total calls for Good Fellowship, and year-to-date, East Goshen Good Fellowship has responded to 106 calls for East Goshen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Derek. Next on the agenda is the conditional use amendment hearing for 905 Airport Road. Counselor, are you ready?
I am ready. Gail, are you ready? All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the chairman indicated, this is a conditional use hearing. Get the right document in front of me, for the application of 905 Airport Road Realty 2 LLC, or appropriately, property at 905 Airport Road. They're seeking to amend multiple previous conditional use approvals to allow for multiple uses within one building. Before I go through some of the housekeeping matters, I want to make sure that everyone's aware that this record is being stenographically reported by a court reporter. So before you speak, please indicate who you are, state your name and spell it, so that way it's a little easier for Gail. And we also need to make sure that only one person is talking at a time. She can only type when one person is talking, not two. So with that, is the applicant here? I assume that's this contingent over here. All right, and actually, I'm gonna move some of these microphones there. We can put this one down there, right?
Oh, yeah.
Uh-oh. It's
I
stuck.
know. It's not supposed to be like that.
Does it come off or not? Okay, all right.
Microphone
Do
itself
that.
comes off.
Do that.
You're gonna get the executive summary version?
Yes.
All right, the executive summary.
Bill said it would be short.
So council will be there. Any witnesses will stand here at the podium and use this microphone here. Okay, great. So that way you're not passing back on. Right.
Off the record, chief, we did set off one of the alarms when we went to the building tonight. We got it disengaged fast enough before anybody. Good evening. My name is Jarrett Ferrantino, Jarrett. Ferrantino, Ferentino. I'm an attorney for 905 Airport Road. And I'm a member of 905 Airport Road, the realty group that owns the property. Just to orientate Chairman Herzog and the group, our property is right across the street from the helicopter museum, up from the YMCA, nestled back there. It is currently vacant, and our application tonight is so we can provide a tenancy for endless pools. Endless pools, and we have a presentation from those representatives, are those therapeutic pools that you may be familiar with if you're in that type of work, or you've seen on television where it looks like a hot tub, but it can simulate lap swimming as therapy or as exercise. And this facility will be utilized in accepting pre-manufactured materials, assembling those materials, and shipping them out to the end user. Although we're seeking a manufacturing conditional use tonight, really the materials, and you'll hear from our folks, are pre-manufactured offsite. There really isn't, it's really an assembly request. And then those materials are then sent offsite.
Can we try to get you in the mic a little bit more?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. So with that, I do have two representatives, Jeff Horka, the head of real estate for Wellness, the company that manages endless pools. And I also have Michael Kennedy, the architect that handles the architecture and planning. And we'll be talking about the specifics of what exactly we're proposing. Before we begin, I just want to thank Dwayne Brady and East Goshen, who have been very, very hospitable to our facility and to us through this process. And we really appreciate it. With that, I would bring Jeff Horka.
Council, let me do a few more housekeeping matters. Let me take some parties, see if there's anyone that wants to be a party, and do some board exhibits before we get to witnesses. if
Sure.
That's all right.
Sure.
All right. So I know the applicant has a delegation here. Is there anyone else here in the audience that is here for this hearing that's not related to the applicant or associated with the applicant? Anyone on Zoom? Okay, then I'm not going to go through my party status spiel. I'll just move right into admitting some board exhibits. And council, I will give you a packet of those as well. I'm sure you've seen them all.
Attorney Kristen. Thank you. Thank you.
Exhibit B1 is the township zoning ordinance and map. Exhibit B2 is the conditional use application dated January 24th, 2023. Exhibit B3 is the form of public notice of tonight's public hearing. Exhibit B4 are the proofs of publication of that public notice in the daily local news. Exhibit B5 is a memorandum from the township zoning officer to the planning commission dated January 27th, 2023. Exhibit B6 is a memorandum from the zoning officer to the board of supervisors dated February 2nd, 2023. Exhibit B7 is a previous conditional use decision dated April 4th, 1990. Exhibit B8 is a previous conditional use decision dated October 10th, 2003. Exhibit B9 is another previous conditional use decision dated February 7th, 2006. And all three of those exhibits relate to multiple uses on the property, similar to what the applicant is looking for today. It's just a different percentage of what those uses are inside the buildings. And finally, exhibit B10, which is not in your exhibit packet, my apologies, but I do have one copy if anyone wants to see it. This is a copy of the letter that was sent out by the township to all the properties within a certain distance pursuant to our ordinance. Are there any questions on the board exhibits? Any objection to admitting any of those into the record?
No, Attorney Crispin, not at all.
All right. And with that, then I will turn it over to you to put on your case.
Okay, well, prior to starting, we have, this is going to aid in the presentation. Jeff, if you want to bring up the, and then we'll just run through Jeff's testimony.
Sure.
Matter of fact, I'll introduce myself. I am Jeff Horka. JEFF HORKA.
Okay, and let's have you sworn by the court reporter, please.
Okay, I do. Okay, I'm Jeff Horka, as mentioned. I'm the Director of Real Estate for Watkins Wellness and Endless Pools. And really want to thank all of you, Dwayne, for all the work that you've done with us to date. We really wanted to approach this the right way, clearly understand what our requirements are in terms of use, hence the reason we're here tonight for this request for the conditional permit use. And we are looking forward to our relationship with this community. We are certain we found the right location that's going to fit our needs. The surrounding community is beautiful. The ingress, egress, everything we need is there. The site is perfect for us, our setup. We're ready. We've got some work to do with Paul and Jarrett and Mike, our architect, to get things ready for us to come and actually occupy the space. But again, we're hopeful after tonight with our explanation of what we do and any questions you may have that we can answer, that you'll feel confident that we're the right fit and that we can make this happen. So we appreciate very much your consideration. And with that said, I'd like Mike to come up and actually, Mike, our architect, to present what we have here for you tonight to show you exactly how we intend on utilizing the building.
And I'll hand those out.
Okay.
Just want to display everything down.
Okay, it's a one stapled packet?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And could you state your name for the record as well, please?
Thank you.
Yes. Mike, M-I-K-E, Kennedy, K-E-N-N-E-D-Y.
Should have green on them.
Yes. So we've just got 12 pages here. The front cover page shows the endless pools system that's manufactured here in Pennsylvania. And what those are is custom pools that you would put in a rehabilitation center or someone's home, but they're not they're not a pre-manufactured unit that you just buy and set up and plug in. They actually come in and they put the wall framing up at the area that they're installing them to put all the pieces together. So it's really a kit. But at the same time, endless pools here in Pennsylvania, the two major components of these pools, which is the swim lane, which creates the current. And it's not just a current at the top of the water, it's a current that's 4 feet deep in the water. So it simulates like a river. And then there's a treadmill. Those two components also get shipped out to the West Coast and get put into the aquatics fitness line for Watkins Wellness, those large swim lanes that are prepackaged units that even have hot tubs combined with them. So they're shipping the two major components out west, and they're also shipping these kits around the world for the installations. The next page is just a summary of the photographs that we have in there. We're showing some existing site and building information. We've got a summary of the operations that take place, all the significant steps. And then we tried to show pictures of the raw materials that come in, the different major operations in the finished goods warehouse. So the first picture you have here, you got a roof view, and you show it shows the portion of the building that we would be leasing, roughly 2/3 of or 3/4 of the building. You see the building elevations there, and from the parking lot, some interior photos on the left side in the main lobby entrance. Next page you see is a floor plan that has the adjacent parking in it. And the shaded gray area is basically the high bay space that's getting white box. They're removing the food equipment types of specialty construction that's in there for our uses. And the office space, the majority of it, we're actually able to take advantage of, and we're just doing some minor renovations that we're proposing in the office space. So there's a clear differentiation between the warehouse, the assembly spaces, and the office space. The next page here is just a summary of all the operations. The building of the manifolds, the building of the swim lane pump housing assemblies and pumps that go in those, the treadmills, the assembling of those, and then the vinyl liners, the PVC liners that go in the pools. In the following page, you see where you see a bunch of colors in the office area. That's just the different departments. They're moving they're in 3 buildings right now. And we're moving the headquarters and the manufacturing and the distribution all into one facility here. Right now, there's some of the manufacturing's taking place along with the distribution at one of the facilities, and this is going to streamline everything, make us much more efficient, and we're not having to go in between the different buildings, less trips, things of that nature. So you see on the far right-hand side is the warehouse for all the pre-manufactured components, materials that come in. In the center, you've got some minor staging in the light assembly, the different processes, shipping with the finished goods over on the left-hand side, and the R&D, we'll call it area just above that. So you're seeing on this next sheet, photographs of the pre-manufactured materials, but you're also seeing some of the shipped crates, the crates that get shipped mixed together. Because again, I was mentioning, they're kind of crisscrossing right now at their existing facilities. And so we want to clean that up with the new layout. And this next page on the left-hand side, there's a manifold that goes in the housing assembly, which is just how they direct the water. It's simple PVC piping and fittings that get cut and glued together. In the center, you're seeing where they take a motor, they put it onto a tank, and they put a controlling unit on it, and that's just bolted together. On the right-hand side at the bottom, you see a completed sub-assembly. That assembly gets put into this swim lane pump assembly. To make that, you see it on the right-hand side, it's got the black pieces of plastic. They have a CNC machine that takes the sheets of plastic, it cuts it out into a bunch of, just like if you're cutting fabric to sew a garment together. You can see in the center, all of the pieces that are set and stored up, the different pieces, and then they glue and screw those together. Sometimes they put some light gauge metal angles in, and that's where we talk about the hole punching and screwing for the light for the metal. The next sheet is the other main component, which is the treadmill. The frames, motors, and rollers all come in manufactured. The rollers and motors are put in. You can see they came out of the boxes there and started there. And then they just take the material for the actual walking surface of the treadmill and they attach that on over the rollers. The next process that you see is the actual pool liner, where they have in the back of that, you see a pool frame, and this is basically a jig where they will build 10 liners of this size, and then they'll expand it and build 10 liners of a bigger one or a smaller one. So that they take little wall pieces out and they build those, and they build that by just cutting this roofing PVC material into the lengths. and then they heat weld it together, heat glue it together, whatever you want to call it. The industry calls it heat welding. It's really a glorified hair dryer. And they have two pieces of plastic. They just hold that hair dryer down, it heats it up and it fuses is what it does. It just fuses.
Like there wouldn't be torch welding, right? I
No,
mean,
no, it's just, it's literally a hair dryer. It heats up the plastic and then when it cools down, they're fused together. You see the crating there with the different packaged parts that are starting to get assembled in there and would get shipped away. One thing I'd like you to notice in there is the hydraulic fluid. It's bought and shipped. It's not put in to the pumps, into the hoses, into the tanks at this facility. There's no testing of it. They just ship it out with, so they buy the hydraulic fluid and ship it out along with it. And then the last page is the finished product. And what you see is, that there's all the kit that's inside of the crate. And then on top of it, those are those wall panels. They're the metal panels that are put together. Those are manufactured again off-site and they're galvanized steel. And those can, handle weather if they're on a truck or something and they're getting transported to a site. So those don't need to get put in the crates themselves. And 3 months later, if your subcontractor gets everything put together right, you got a wonderful, swim spot.
Thank you.
Mike, just a couple quick questions. There's no noxious air emissions with this process?
No, there's no wastewater. There's no airborne pollutants that are generated with this process.
And no unnecessary noise other than what would be associated with typical warehousing or anything up in that region?
It's all hand tools that they're using inside.
It's going to add jobs.
Well, it's going to increase jobs than what they have right now, but they're working 30 miles from here, so you're going to have additional jobs from what they currently have right now. A lot of the administration, leadership, and engineering are, when we did a scatter diagram, they're already living in this area, and then the manufacturing is a little bit south from here. I think it was like about 10 to 15 minutes south of this area. So the good news is for quite a few people, it's going to be a much shorter drive. Yep.
I just want to make one comment or two comments. Thank you for choosing East Goshen and welcome.
I have a couple of questions. Are we ready to ask questions?
Yeah, I
or
just,
we-
so we're pointing the orientation of where, there's two sections under your zoning conditional use that we would be seeking our permitted use, section 4 and section 25. And that's with the solicitor for the planning commission identified with Dwayne would be the appropriate section. And I'll be happy to just to cite those particular provisions allow for these pre-manufactured materials to be assembled in this nature, and even some light manufacturing beyond what we're proposing. So that's really, there's a host of exceptions, several pages of them. Those are the two we've identified that most appropriately fit the conditional uses of the proposed use for endless pools.
Is it okay to ask questions now?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. So I know that you're saying that you're using the hairdryer. I know the device that you're talking about. My husband has one as well. He's an engineer and he does employ the same heat gun, if you will, for different purposes. But when he does that, he needs to make sure that he's properly airing his work area. And so I want to know, are you going to have negative pressure rooms where these heat guns are employed? Because there are, like it or not, there are emissions that come from heating PVC and other plastics. And they are dangerous. So I want to know if there's gonna be a negative pressure room for that use.
Yeah, there'll be a negative pressure in the building, but we have to bring in, and I'm an architect, I don't know the actual CFMs, but the mechanical systems are being changed out for this space, and in that area, they have to bring in the appropriate amount of ventilation air for the volume of the space and for what you're doing inside.
Okay, will there be scrubbers on the outside of the facility?
Will there be carbon monoxide?
Will there be scrubbers on the outside of the facility to make sure that those toxic chemicals are not released into the environment.
There will not be, we are not putting carbon monoxide scrubbers in the equipment on the roof.
Okay,
We, I have not done that in the past for this type
okay.
of.
So are there scrubbers of sorts that can be used specifically for the emissions that will be coming from the heated PVC and heated plastics? So I'd like an answer to that eventually. I understand you may not be able to answer that tonight.
Wayne, do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I've done research, yes.
Okay,
The system they're talking about is basically the
You-
easiest way.
Yeah, if you could come up and just for the corporate, this is Dwayne Brady, the zoning officer.
thanks, Dwayne.
I do. When they said about heat welding, I researched it quite, not only from the zoning standpoint, but from the fire standpoint. And all the information I got, the most simple way to address this is fusing a carpet together in a house. The system is that type of thing,
Mhm.
where it takes those two pieces of plastic and fuses them together. There's very little emissions off these, in the type of equipment they're doing. So it was something that we looked at, but didn't raise any red flags to us in the process as far as having scrubbers and those types of things with,
Okay,
because they're very mild as far as emissions that are going to come off.
okay. Is there still gonna be a negative pressure room where these are gonna be?
That we would have to look at when they produced their plans for permitting.
Okay.
If it's required by code, then it would be required.
Okay,
We're not that far along.
that's
Um,
fine.
So.
You had this on the top of your mind, right?
Yes, I actually did quite a bit of research. I talked to some hazmat techs that I know.
Yeah.
As far as
Yeah.
doing that. And everything that I discussed didn't bring any red flags up as far as
Okay,
major incidents with this.
thank you.
So-
And then I do have one other issue that I wanted to bring up. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I'm just looking for it here. in the- I understand that there is some metal cutting.
Yes.
Okay, so, where are the employees gonna be required to wear protective clothing? So that the metal doesn't get into their own clothing, or do they have a uniform that's gonna be changed out every day?
They're not sawing it, it's just getting sheared. So it's like a shearing machine. It's just flat stock that gets pulled over and sheared off. So it's not sawing. So it's shearing, I guess would be the right term.
Are there gonna be fragments that are gonna be sheared off that could potentially?
No, you're shearing the two pieces. We're not creating debris.
You're not creating any debris, so there's not gonna be any metal shards anywhere in this room.
Nope.
So I'm gonna be able to take a magnet and run it all over the room and not find one thing. Okay. I don't know that, I don't know enough about this process to know differently, but
So they're shearing the metal, they're punching a hole, and the punching of the hole is not it's a hole for a screw to go in, so when you punch the hole through it, it's not creating that piece of material on the floor, it's just punching a hole that then you put a screw through.
and when you put the screw through, there are metal shards that come through there sometimes. Again, my husband works with this type of material, and I want to make sure that the workers are in a safe environment.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that there's not going to be any issue with metals going home with them to small children. I just want to make sure that it's done safely.
So they're MIOSHA, or not MIOSHA, the OSHA requirements that they're currently following in all their manufacturing, they're gonna continue to follow those same procedures.
Yeah, I'm sure you're OSHA compliant, and that would involve all those things, which is not something that's before this body right now. It's if you comply with OSHA, that's a whole separate federal.
Okay, any other
Any other
questions from the
questions?
board?
Yeah, I think just one. I didn't hear anything about delivery. How your delivery schedule will work of components and parts. Will you be trying to schedule those so that they're delivered during the regular business hours compared with having perhaps tractor trailers sitting overnight, the fumes, everything else? So what's your thought about what's your plan about delivery?
when there's a delivery, it's unloaded and then the truck leaves, so they're not being stored overnight. You're not coming in and dropping off material. And
During your regular business hours?
It's
is
during
prior
regular
schedule?
business hours, yes.
So if that was, by chance, we had a condition and we indicated that that would be, your representation would be satisfied with a condition?
Right.
Okay.
So when you say normal business hours, is the entire operation conducted during normal business hours, a 9 to
There-
5 sort of thing?
There's a shift at night that fixes things and, a skeleton crew. There's one more of this piece of equipment that needs to get done, so 80% of the assembly work is being done in the 9 to 5 or the 7
7
to
to 3, 4,
3, and then
yeah.
there's another crew that fix things, loads things, does things like that and minor work for the second shift. The administration staff are on the 9 to 5.
Would you have any sense that there's a boom in the operation and that you might end up having let's call it the traditional midnight shift operations on a ongoing, you had tons of orders coming in and extending the shift work into the wee hours of the night type of and now, of course, you're in a business park, so.
I was just gonna point that out, Mike. Do you have
Yeah.
this map?
I know what the location, so
Okay.
I know the geography of it, and so it is
For-
in the
for
right
people
location.
Who haven't seen it, this facility is off of Airport Road. And it appears to me to be surrounded by, other
Other-
business
other light.
facilities.
Yeah,
Do we know what the nearest, residence is?
it's gotta be some distance.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
some distance too, so
So no interference there, John. No, that wasn't my sense. I was just curious about whether they would, have continued operations and.
So this is a significant.
Real quick. Historically, that has not occurred.
Yeah.
And your name again, sir?
Jeff Horka.
Thank you.
Yes, so that hasn't occurred. We don't anticipate that to
Yeah.
occur.
Okay.
I was more of a curiosity question and I do hope, kind of picking up what Cody said, I hope the business flourishes because it looks like a good location for what you're doing and what I refer to as light assembly and fabrication, hardly fabrication. It's mostly light assembly is the way I see it. So I think it's a good location. All right, they're the only questions.
And can you tell us what time your second shift ends, please?
They're allowed to have a second
3
shift.
to 11.
11 PM.
Thank
11 PM.
We don't regulate your shifts.
Okay. Well, that's all right.
Mine was curiosity.
Yes.
So this is a significant increase in the amount of space set aside for warehousing and work for them to, over time, they've gotten crowded and things of that nature. So while we can't predict the future, we sure don't anticipate outgrowing this space in the near time at all. This is.
I hope you do.
We have more space.
We have a little bit more room in the building too, if they need.
Yeah, you can see that.
All right.
Hoping, Mr.
There's more
Lynch,
racking.
one day maybe we'll have to come back to you for a third shift.
All right, well, I hope it
We
flourishes.
won't regulate that.
Yeah.
I do have a couple questions just so we have a complete record for the decision. How many total employees do you have for the facility? Do you know?
Ballpark.
140.
Oh, very good.
Okay. Have you looked at parking for the facility? Has
We
that
have,
been, okay,
we have looked at parking and discussed it with the landlord, and Mike and his team have mapped out our needs.
Okay.
The parking is actually visible on the, if you look at is it the first map? You can see, and there's equations where you consider the amount of available spaces with the work centers.
So when we counted up the
I think it's the
spaces.
third page.
It's on
isn't
page-
it?
Hold on. One person talking at a time.
So when we calculated the spaces for the square footage of the lease space, there was an excess of spaces than what we required. So there's more parking on the site when you look at our percentage of the building and how many spaces would be associated with that and what we need.
Right, and I understand that. What is the use in the other quarter of the building that you are not renting?
This use is currently that's office space, vacant office space. But the thought is to turn that to, again, high bay space and office space. So you would see a percentage of that being turned to similar type high bay space in the back.
Okay, good. So we'll just have to ensure that the entire use of the building complies with our parking ordinances once it's fully occupied. And there very well should be a condition related to that.
And so, you know, again, I think one thing that we're not increasing the office space from what it is right now.
Mhm.
And
And when you say additional office space, of possibly available within the company, not subleasing it to another entity, just again, curiosity.
That's just in the extra footprint of the building itself. That's not the rented space from Endless Pools. This would be excess space within the facility itself.
Oh, within the.
Right.
Gotcha.
There's a
That
vacant-
currently set up as office space.
Now I'm with you.
Gotcha.
Thank you, Jared. Thank you. Yeah.
And what does traffic look like? How many shipments do you get in a day? How many go out
So
per day?
Currently, there's 5 delivery and 5 shipments a day, and that's a peak load. And remember, we're at 3 facilities, so there's some jockeying going around.
Hmm.
How many doors do you have over there?
There's two doors at the shipping area, and then there's another 4 doors total. So there's 6 doors total, so we got 4, right?
And what kind of trucks are they? Are they large? Are they box trucks,
Well, they're
tractor trailers?
those would be tractor trailers.
Okay.
Are they Max or Freightliners?
Hey, I just got to get my record, John.
Yeah.
I understand.
Is there going to be any outside storage of materials?
No.
Briefly, what sort of internal improvements are you doing? Is it gutting? Is it the gray area that's mostly being gutted and turned into warehousing and then?
Correct. That was a food specialty area. There's sloped floors in there and things, and it was set up for food testing. And there's insulated walls in all the rooms and things of that nature. And so we've got to turn that into warehouse and light assembly space, which is basically high bay space, empty high bay space, so that then we can bring our equipment in.
Okay, and you'll go through the township for all the appropriate permitting for that?
Correct, for both the removal work and then the new work.
Very good. And I think this is my last question. Are there any flammable or explosive materials that you'll be using associated with the process?
With the assembly process, no.
All right.
I have a question about the hydraulic fluid that you're talking about, though. Is that flammable? Is it volatile? I don't know anything about that. So Dwayne, can you answer that for us?
Like, I can start it. It's
Oh,
only,
okay.
it's only purchased in the amount that you're allowed to by the fire marshal. And again, it just comes in the pails. There's a pallet of those, and one of them gets set in each of the assembly kits, and they buy it on as an as needed basis. So they're not, this isn't like a paint warehouse or like a Home Depot where you're going in and seeing a bunch of those containers. It's just they're buying the fluid that they need to ship out with those containers.
In the,
And
pro-
so-
but in the process, is it Is it
meets the
something that-
requirements that the fire marshal requires for the quantity that you can have on a site with the fire suppression system that you have in the building.
okay?
To answer your question, yes, it is flammable. That's why they have to limit the source.
Okay,
So the fire code, along with our other codes in the township, limit the amount that they can have on site at any one time.
okay.
So,
And there's no special storage required then because it is limited.
correct,
Okay.
correct. And if there was, then we would regulate that under the codes as part of their permitting process and stuff.
I don't have any further questions. Does anyone on the board?
I want to say that these are great pools. A friend of mine, they're fantastic.
Can you serve?
friend of mine. You practically could.
Take them through the ringer and
They-
then.
It's a great product. It really is. I think it's tremendous. The treadmill does give me a workout. I go to my girlfriend's and we work out together, so
Awesome.
it's a really nice product.
Do you guys have anything else to say before we open it up to public comment, if there is any? No?
Thanks for the presentation.
All right.
Thank you.
Good
Good presentation.
Is there any public comment? I don't think so, but I have to ask.
In the room? Anything on Zoom? I don't see anything.
All right. If there's no public comment, then Mr. Chairman, I recommend that you close the record to this proceeding. I don't think it would be appropriate for you to take a vote on this tonight. I think it'd be best if we had some deliberations and had a decision ready, and you can vote on this application at a later meeting.
So
Agreed.
being advised, I will close the meeting and we will take the matter under consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Gail. You're good. Thanks.
Oh, don't we have a second hearing though, right?
No,
It's not.
no,
Oh, that's right, legislative.
I probably should have put it
Yeah,
under
thank
old
you.
business.
it's an ordinance. You want to switch the microphones back or leave them?
Mr. Chairman,
Who is addressing the chairman?
I'm just trying to pass this motion. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we move to pass ordinance 129-B-2023 to change section 156-3. A title establishing limits on noise to decrease sound level limits by 5 decibels.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion that's seconded on the noise and nuisance ordinance.
I have no further.
No comment.
No comment, any other
No
comments here?
comment?
Comments in the room? Comments from Zoom? I don't see any hands up, so we'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0, it passes. It's easy.
Can you say that louder? I just want to test the, no. Aaron Gabron.
You're really bad today. Oh,
I am. I'm gonna get worse.
under old business,
This Monday.
I just want to mention it very briefly that Derek, I think, already alluded to it. We are working with our partners at Westtown in the Wego Police Department to get a survey and a study done by a consultant. I just want to be sure, have we all accepted the recommendation that Derek made that 4 people meet? That would be you, David?
Yeah.
And Derek and John and someone from Westtown?
Yeah, I mean, technically, we can have 2 representatives because we have 5 members, but we at least have to have 1. So
If one of the other board members isn't interested, I'd like to attend it and see what's happening with it. With Cody or Michelle, John.
No, that would be fine. I
It won't affect the,
appreciate it. You know what we want. David knows what we want, so I just wanted to mention, I think we're all in agreement that that be done.
yeah. Thank you,
Okay,
John.
new business,
that's, yeah, financial report.
oh, I apologize, I skipped.
I don't mind. I mean, what's close.
No, Dave has to
Dave.
have his minute.
We need to get him
Yeah.
moved on.
Thank you so much. Let's see, before.
Good night.
Thank you, Dwayne.
Thanks, Dwayne.
Oh, I've got it here somewhere.
You leaving?
Where did everybody go?
I know, right? Thanks
for
staying there.
They gone. All right. Yeah, please.
Yeah, get in the audience and make some noise, Gail.
Dave?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I give the financial report to make a brief announcement about the ongoing concerns in the banking industry due to the Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank collapse recently in California. Did some research. There were some questions from board members, and I kind of wanted to give an overview if people don't understand what happened, and then to make sure that everybody understands that our financial concerns are any concerns over those would be put to rest. So what happened is the banking industry was put on high alert Friday, March 10th, 2023, as regulators halted trading in the shares of SVB Financial Corp Group, the parent company of Silicon Valley Bank, and closed the bank to protect depositors. On Sunday, March 12th, 2023, another bank, Signature Bank of New York, was also shut down by regulators and placed into FDIC receivership. By way of background, driven by strong deposit growth, SVB had doubled in size in 2021. This is due to the pandemic. This is a lot of tech startups, which are, it was a limited number of depositors with huge amounts of deposits. These deposits were primarily invested by the bank into longer-term U.S. Treasuries and mortgage-backed securities. And as the interest rates on the rise, the securities in the portfolio fell in value, and the SVB was forced to sell these fixed income investments at a loss. I mean, we're talking over $1 billion. And at the same time, the customers wanted their money. So customers accelerated withdrawals, and the sale of these investments at a loss triggered more investment withdrawals from SVB, resulting in what the headlines had called a run on a bank. As a result, shares have declined rapidly on Friday and trading was halted. This affected banks across the nation temporarily, probably. The Fed, the FDIC, and the Treasury stepped in and enacted a new bureau which will allow banks currently to use those assets as securities and collateral so that they can get financing for low interest loans, which would bridge those gaps and won't cause a run on the bank. And I listened to an M&T webinar, Vanguard webinar. I talked to CBiz. CBiz has less than 0.01% of our pension funds invested in any of these accounts. Typically, it's an index fund or something where it's very small limitation exposure. Talked to Pliget, they have zero exposure to that. And we also have, as far as our deposit accounts, we have, due to smart predecessors, we have resolutions regarding collateralization of township deposits, which ensure that we only do business with third-party institutions that will collateralize 100% to 102% of our deposit value. So we are never out of money. So that being said, usually the Fed will, or the FDIC will insure $250,000 worth. We have millions of dollars in the bank, and 100% of ours is collateralized. So I just wanted to state that for the record. Number two, good news. The Commonwealth Financing Authority finally met, and we were awarded East Goshen Township $176,000 for Bowtree Pond. So that will help towards, we have about, my projection is that we'll easily match that 100% to 150% of those funds through our infrastructure sustainability to get that project done this year.
Is that a 100% match?
Yeah.
Great.
And that, Dave, is a.
That's an LSA, so it's a local share account.
Right, but and then that receipt of that grant will not occur until we complete the project, correct?
Typically, yes.
So maybe the end of next year by the time we actually get the receipt, but. when
I
we think
would,
about-
the way that things have been going, yeah,
Just so.
yeah,
kinda
that's a
understand the
good
timing on
timeline.
that.
Yeah.
That's money that you're gonna probably forget about between now and December of 24.
I remember that.
I was wondering if the LSA grants, does that happen every year? Is there an application for
No,
LSA grants? or-
No, Derek and I investigated it with them. They it's when they have a windfall that's unknown and it comes out of the blue, and then you have a very limited time. So hopefully you've got enough documentation on your projects already in the hopper and you haven't moved far enough that it disqualifies you from the grant.
It
So
all
you're kind of
depends,
in that,
it all depends what the gaming revenue is.
Yeah.
So encourage people to play some slots and be all right.
it's that pandemic slot play. Yeah.
There you go. Get the AC. Oh, no, AC.
Yeah, right. As far as the financial report goes, as of February 28th, net of pass-throughs, the general fund had year-to-date revenues of $1,676,499 and expenses of $1,839,897 for a deficit year-to-date of $163,398. And the general fund balance was $5,340,824. February revenue finished 1.6% lower than our budget and 4.6% lower than prior year. Our real estate transfer tax collections is driving the decrease versus the budget, while real estate transfer tax and earned income tax are driving the decrease versus the prior year. February expenses are 3.4% over budget and 15.3% higher than prior year to date. Timing of engineering services versus recharges, coupled with building expenses, has driven the expenses higher than budget. Our insurance premiums, engineering services, and public safety costs are driving our expense variance versus prior year. Our year-to-date net result of revenue and expenses trails behind both budget and prior year. So we are a little bit behind budget, definitely behind prior year, primarily real estate tax. And some of the revenue concerns are if the transfer tax as of March, when I did this just the other day, we're about $110,000 under budget year to date based on last year's performance. EIT is about $40,000 under budget. Permit fees currently are $100,000 under budget, but we haven't really booked anything for March yet. Yeah. And it's tough to, we kind of use the prior year when we do a monthly budget and see the percentages that were spent throughout the course of the year when we apply it to a monthly amount based on the annual budget. So that's just going to be something I'll update the board on as we move along, that and really closely watching the transfer tax. Any expense concerns I have are, it's really timing versus prior year and budget. We'll keep an eye on the engineering service expenses. They do seem to be up. Township building, public works building, district court maintenance expenses, as well as you'll see in the treasury report, a lot of the vehicle maintenance and fuel costs have increased substantially. Anything that I didn't have a pretty good conversation with Mark Miller about was put in at least at a 3% increase. It looks like we're currently at about a 6% inflation rate. Latest update I saw from Pliget and the webinar was hoping that by 2024, we're down to around 2.5% inflation, which would be closer to what I put in the forecast for the long range plan.
Yeah.
So that would be really good news moving forward. Equipment rental prices versus prior year. I looked into this. We've got kind of a combination. So a lot of it is parts, the automotive places. It's Napa, it's Kent Automotive, it's Intercon. We've had a couple, like a turbo had to be fixed. We had a transmission piece replaced. I mean, those went from like $4,000 to $6,000 or $7,000. So that was kind of a rude awakening, but hopefully the number of projects will decrease. Looks like this could be an early in the year thing as we do most of our maintenance over the winter, and we're gearing up to, with temperatures as nice as they are, guys are out and very active and back to 410s a week.
Dave, may I ask you,
Please.
on the capital reserve,
Yes,
highways, roads and streets, how come what do we spend $233,000 on?
we have $125,000 on skid steer, 52,000 on Ford F-150 for our fire marshal. That's a replacement vehicle. 43K we did for pickleball surfacing. We did $35,000 for a mulcher. Trench shoring equipment was 13,000, and we had public works roof repairs and replacement.
All within the schedule and or all budgeted.
Correct. We've spent year to date about 300,000 capital total.
Okay, so it's mostly equipment then.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Some of the other big ones, bond fund, we've spent, so non-general funds that we've spent. I know I typically don't go into this, but I thought it'd be interesting because of all the projects and things we have going on. And some of the big dollars looking at in the capital plan, the next couple of years, looking at $7 to $8 million being spent total, including the Milltown Dam project. We've spent already year to date over $1.3 million of non-general funds. That would be capital expenses, which we just went through, $600,000 of the bond for the West Town Way pump station improvements. And sewer reserves, $115,000 for the West Town Way pump station, $40,000 for the caustic soda project. That's just getting underway. We do have about $153,000 grant that will be applied. Again, that'll probably be delayed and we may not see the revenue until 2024.
Yeah.
$135,000 for Hershey Mill Estate sewer. We know we're going to have another $750,000 to $60,000 since those guys have wrapped up and did their job, got out and did a good job what they did. So that'll be added on to this. We've got $45,000 in ARPA spent and another $90,000 in sewer reserves that should be reimbursed by the ARPA.
How do we keep track of, I mean, there's some fairly significant timing year to year, right? I mean, we're gonna have situations where we're gonna have expenses in this year, and then the grant will be paid when the project's done in the subsequent year. How are we tracking that from a budget perspective? And, you know, because that can create some holes and then some, you know, manna from heaven. We get the income that doesn't relate materially to the expenses in the year, in the previous year. So it's.
Yeah, it's kind of been an ongoing process for me to see how it was done in the past and look more at a 5-year revenue and expense. So I'm looking at where we're going to capture those realistically. It seems like in the past, it's always been put in, like I didn't say that we were going to get a lot of this Milltown Dam money this year. Maybe we'll get the Hershey's Mill money, 380, which we should, because we should wrap up this spring. But I don't forecast, I didn't budget anything for the Milltown Dam until 2025, at least. And since it's budgeted year to year, I'm kind of working with the engineers, Derek, Mark Miller, and seeing, you know, realistically, is it realistic or is it not?
I think with cash accounting, that's one of the finesses that you have to think about, because particularly with things like grants and the completion of the project, typically then the grant is paid and then allowing for agencies to process can be months and months after the project is completed. Those kind of gaps are going to show themselves, particularly in a cash accounting versus accrual, where you can build in those anticipated receipts much more effectively.
That's it. Accounting 101. I remember the principal materiality, you're supposed to match up the revenue with the expenses.
Yeah.
And just kind of figure.
I think
And he is, in fact, but that's exactly what you do in cash. But again, when you're anticipating and there's a lag, it can make it look poor. And for instance, the first quarter, typically in local government, the first quarter is
slow revenue.
Is slow. If it starts to look like this as we approach the end of the third quarter, you know, that's that'll be concerning. But that's I think we got, you know, and obviously our big earned income months are April, May, June, right? Are they
Should be starting in March.
Yeah, it should be starting. I think the easiest answer, David, is the multi-year look is, to me, more important than looking at a single year.
Yeah, I agree.
And as much as people probably don't want to hear, we are basically, if you look at the year-to-date report, we're flat with the budget that we have for the real estate property tax, which was increased. So we're on track to get to the revenue forecast, but I'm glad that we didn't build in additional windfalls or hopes and dreams, really.
Yeah, I think that's important to be conservative on the revenue side. I've always thought that way.
Yeah, especially with the way that the real estate transfer tax has gone thus far year to date. We'll see what happens.
By the way, when this applicant that was just in with this conditional use mentioned 140 employees, I multiplied that by the local service tax number. And that in and of itself is about $7,400 annually. And then depending on where the workers are coming from, if those municipalities don't have an earned income tax, we would get all of it. So there's potential there for, you know, some reasonable revenue increase, not a cash cow by any means, but
you know, that's, I didn't realize the employment was going to be that significant. I was thinking maybe 30 or 40 people. So when I heard 140, I immediately got the calculator out.
That's a lot of people.
Dave, I have a couple questions.
Mhm.
And I apologize if you already answered them. My first question is, so I don't like the fact we're running a deficit. No one does, especially after we raise taxes. Would you say if without the expenses that we've had to pay, where do you think that number would be if we didn't have those yearly expenses timed the way they were? I know it's a hard question to answer. Basically, or do you think we're still on par for the rest of the year for our budget?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
we'll have a lot better look once we get about halfway through the year. That should really give a good look
Okay.
at it, and we'll know if we're gonna have the anticipated, it really would be a surplus that we should have. The way that I budgeted them as transfers, so it shows as a net zero, which is typically done, but you can budget a surplus. We should see a surplus, and then the board will decide where we should put those monies.
Okay, thanks. And then
Mhm.
my next thing was, not really a question, but a comment that you and I spoke yesterday about the difference between, or the money that we're getting on these interest. And if we're maximizing the amount of money in our savings, if we're putting that in investments to be able to get return. Do you mind? I don't know if you've talked to any of the other board members, but I think they may find it valuable too.
I haven't, but it was a good question, and we are getting close to, if you average it between 4.5% to 4.75% in what is essentially a checking account at Pliget, you can get up to 0.6% more if you lock it up to 365 days. With the way the Fed's going, I don't want to lock anything up. I want to wait and see where
Yeah.
they settle out
I agree. I think
before we
that's
do
smart.
anything like that. But other than that, we would probably, as soon as we find that out, possibly look at some 6-month things for like the infrastructure, sustainability, op reserves, stuff we know we're not going to touch. The bulk of the cap reserve funds, the bulk of the sewer reserve fund, that kind of stuff. I'm looking at the sewer op fund to see if we can make a bigger transfer to sewer reserve. We've typically run a little heavier than I think is necessary.
Great. Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
As you know, of course, we're limited in what we can invest in, but I think the Pliget move that Dave and Derek made with moving it into their program. And we get some dividends back from that at the end of the year with whatever we may spend out of that account. There's a payback there. So that is kind of an implicit return on investment, if you will, once that plays out. So that's a good thing. I had one question, that may come under the bills to pay, but we had the unfortunate situation at Milltown Dam 3 weeks ago with the track hoe getting mired down. I know we had a big towing bill, and then there's going to be corrective repairs needed for the track hoe, I think, for cleaning it out.
If it's not a full loss, so they were still assessing it and digging into the.
Do my question was going to be insurance. Is that an insurance claim?
Yeah.
Is that where it is now?
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
good.
we're gonna see what they recommend as far as complete replacement or can it be fixed?
Mm.
And Mark and I have a concern that if they try and patch it up, is it gonna have other problems down the line very soon? Just like if you ran a car into the water and they go, oh, no, we can do that. We'll just dry it out. Well, what's gonna go wrong after that? So,
Yeah.
that is gonna be an insurance claim. We just don't know if it's total loss yet or not.
Okay. Yeah, okay. That was the main question. It was insurance. That's good. In the first blush.
Yeah.
One other question. I see that the refuse fund, we're now up to $700,000+ That's, the trend has been up over the last year or more. And that was
Yeah.
down to around 540 or less, I think. And is that just a short-term receipt over expense at the moment, or is it building?
Yes, no, we actually have 2 outstanding bills that
Right.
are getting paid
Okay.
back to back.
Alright.
That'll get cashed.
Okay. It was looking, pretty robust there, the way that it ramped up.
Yeah, well, it's interesting too. We had, Michelle had asked me a question about the bank fees, which you'll see in the treasurer's report, but when we went into 2023, suddenly our bank fees went from $575 for positive pay and all the things, ACH
Yeah.
monitor, so we do, to $3,400 in January and then $3,700 in
Oh,
February.
glad
So I
you asked
reached
that
out to our relationship manager and said, this is not correct. So we've got getting a credit back for that in March.
Excellent. That was one thing I remember with the positive pay and like, they're really important services to have, but the banks, you go, well, we have X amount of, deposits with you, customer relations. Those are fees that they apparently cannot waive because it's essentially a third party service and they just can't give away those dollars. So they're not, but I'm glad that you brought it up so that the error was they're at least recognized.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we're doing
That's
our
great.
reconciliations every month, so it stands out like a sore thumb.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Motion?
Oh, do you know when you're gonna?
No, just, we haven't hit the proposed bills yet. Unless,
Mr. Chairman, I'd
Yep.
like to make a motion that we approve the minutes from the February 7th and the February 21st meeting.
There's one correction I wanted to make, Chris. On February 7th, page 10. Rochelle heard from Ed McFalls, power outages at Hershey's Mill are improving since the switches have been replaced. The reclosure switches. So it's line 5. Ed McFall, not Mark Miller. That's the only change.
Any other comments? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Passes 5-0. And
Bills.
treasurer's report is next.
Thank you,
We
Mr.
should
Chair.
have
I'll start off with our latest Portnoy collection report. We did reach out to them for some of Mike's questions in a prior board meeting. They are going to put together some reports. They sent the first draft over at the end of the day today. They're pretty basic. Chris and I went through them and we're going to reach back out with some a little bit more detailed things that I want to see with the aging and a little more depth as far as their process and specific accounts going from stage to stage to stage as far as through their collection process. Just to make sure they're doing their due diligence. I mean, to date, as of the end of February, we've collected $125,397 is outstanding on 206,954. So we've collected 39% of what we've passed.
Is that
And that's
better
over the
than we
last-
used to do?
Yeah, most of what that original, so we collected from the first batch that we gave them, which was essentially uncollectible for us. We were just mailing a letter, then having the legal, we pay for legal bills, then they send it out. Now we don't pay any legal bills. We have them tag it to the collection bill that they've already gotten. So we collected $30,000 on 105,000. That's almost 30% just in that, which was essentially uncollectible. It was a lot of very, very, very old paper. And I used to be in collections. And if it's over 3 years, you're lucky to get. I mean, you could sell it to another company for pennies on the dollar. Yeah, bankruptcies are happening, all sorts of stuff. So the good thing is proactively using their name and Chris being clever and sticking a lot of communications and letters going to with the late notices and things like that. I mean, we actually collected 46,000 to Portnoy's 34,000.
Huh.
So before they even got the
Oh,
dollars.
nice, Chris.
So
Nice.
they're passing it back to us when they get this stuff pretty quickly and we're collecting it before it even gets to them too.
Nice. So
So-
you don't have to add to the pod.
Yeah, and it's a good service for residents to know,
It's there.
hey,
Yeah.
you are
don't-
gonna go to collections and we can't do anything at that point.
Yeah.
But if you pay it now, Get it in.
It's reasonable leverage when someone gets in that situation. And then, they can work out payment plans. I mean, they've been a good company. So.
yeah, we've only got 6 payment plans that we know of right now. So I'm curious about more information on those
Yeah.
processes that they have and what they consider a valid payment plan and how much of these are, how far they're gonna go on some of these legal sides.
Continues positive.
Let's see. The treasurer's report is from, it's a big one, February 16th, 2023 through March 16th, 2023. We had real estate tax, EIT, park and rec registrations, and permit fees drove our general fund revenues during this period. Interest earnings in all funds are strong due to our increased bank interest rates. Pennsylvania local government interest trusts lowest interest rate, that's Pliget, is currently 4.42% yield. They base that on a 7-day revolving period. General fund incurred the March WEGO contribution, insurance payments, pension contributions, fuel and maintenance, repair costs, and other routine operational expenses. These do seem to be a bit higher than last year. So we're keeping an eye on that and digging into some particular vendors to see not only is there more bills, but have surcharges and rates gone up. The capital fund recorded purchase of a replacement vehicle for the fire marshal codes officer, public works trailer, and skid steer mulcher attachment totaling $97,000. All are included in our fixed asset amortization schedule and budget.
Look at this line. This is great.
Mark Miller, our public works director, sold our 7-year-old skid steer, originally purchased in 2016 for $47,000. It was purchased and we sold it for $52,000. Technically $51,500.
And you know, that's just not Mark, who we definitely give kudos to, but it's a reflection of where the market is now for equipment. It is just, I mean, the price of a skid steer in the last 2 or 3 years, two plus years, has gone up about 80%. So that's a reflection on cars right now. And so it's still a real good thing. I mean, when you originally pay for something, but then you have to look at it in current dollars too, and what that will purchase, but it's still great. Mark's always terrific.
We gotta be
with that.
careful, we'll lose Mark to a salesman job for skid steering
Yeah.
operation.
I was joking with Mark that we should just buy a bunch of equipment, maintain it, and then resell it. We'll have a business going. State liquid fund, we got our first payment, which is the annual turn back revenue, and that was a very small portion of what the total should be, 2,320. And we are almost exactly on what I budgeted, 525,000 for our full year, based on the schedule that PA released. That's up about $15,000 from prior year, which is good news.
That's good.
Sewer fund paid $167,000 to West Goshen Township for the Q4 2022 operation and maintenance agreement. The bond fund incurred $3,000 in engineering fees for Hershey's Mill and Milltown dams. And ARPA fund expenditures included $32,000 for Hershey's Mill Estates sewer repair project. And Michelle, you had asked for some engineering numbers today, so I got those for you. We had in 2022 spent about $127,000 on engineering.
Amongst how many funds? Sewer?
Primarily two funds. Yeah, and 44% of that was sewer fund.
Yeah.
How many firms, Dave? That's not just Pinoni, is it? Or is that?
This is Lanai, not engineering.
You said engineering.
Oh, electrical.
Oh,
Sorry.
electrical, okay.
Gotcha. Okay, so a good percentage of that was sewer for obvious reasons with.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
A lot of it too is upgrades to the lighting. and
Yeah,
stuff
we
for that.
started doing the lighting just at the end of last year.
New clock.
All right, you have a motion.
I have a couple questions. The fire marshal codes officer, what type of vehicle did we purchase?
That is a Ford F-150. We tried to get the hybrid and they did not have anything remotely close to the hybrid that we were looking to get. The fire marshal needs something that has a covered separate back, so we couldn't go with like an Escape or something like that. Talking with Mark and Dwayne, he's gonna have separate apparatuses and things that he needs it in a completely separate cabin.
But the Ford 150 is the total electric is called the Lightning and hugely popular. And I was wondering if we considered that.
It was considered. Mark tried everybody he could find and nobody had any electrics.
Okay.
We just didn't know what the timeline was gonna be.
What do we pay for the regular truck?
51.5.
Oh, 51.5, I was thinking 47.
So my second question, back to revenue and expense recognition, the sewer fund that we paid was for the fourth quarter of 2022. On an accrual basis, that would have been recognized in the old budget. That's recognized in the 2023 budget, that expense? It's
The 4 quarters will be, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's budgeted 4 quarters. The way that our auditors will do it is a little bit different because they would have done it that accrual away, but since it's such a similar payment every time, when you look at 4 quarters together, it rolls through and they've been
Okay,
doing the
great,
same way.
thank you.
You know, I'd like to pick back up on the vehicle for the fire marshal. Recognize that it's a necessary vehicle. The condition of the current vehicle, from what I can recall, was in pretty good shape. And to me, it would have seemed like a good opportunity to purchase an EV vehicle, even if we had to wait a year or more, given the fact that the truck, even though it was on a schedule to replace, it could have held itself and held the value pretty well. I have some modicum of disappointment that we didn't pursue an EV vehicle, understanding the unavailability at the moment, but being able to use the existing vehicle till we got that one. I don't know how anybody feels. I don't want to beat anybody up. It's just, I think we need to be attentive to this. Again, we're supposed to be doing what we can at the local level. We got the latest report from the United Nations. Everything's dire. I buy into a lot of that, and I'm just thinking at the local level, doing some of these things. I just want us to be more attentive to these kind of opportunities and thinking about a chess game rather than it's on the schedule, we can replace it. Let's see, we couldn't get it. Let's go.
Did we sell the old vehicle yet?
No,
Are we
we're
going
still
to?
getting some life out of it right now, but we have a full staff now for our codes department. So we have 2 inspectors. We're using Arrow for additional inspections. And then Dwayne is our chief codes officer. He can do inspections, and we've also got him being the fire marshal. He's actually going to go do fire inspections. So
Do we
that
supply a
was the
vehicle
driving.
For all 3 of them?
During the day.
It
I mean,
makes
they-
sense that
They don't
each have
take
a
it
vehicle.
home.
Yeah. it's-
No, they don't take it home.
Okay.
But
Curious.
that was my understanding, Mike. So I appreciate where you're coming from.
Yeah.
The driving impetus from Dwayne and Mark, and I think Derek agreed to, is
Yeah.
that he needed the vehicle.
Yeah, understand. I just want us to be attentive. And of course, all the while I'm saying that, I'm hearing Michelle's concerns for the bigger manifest questions about, the long-term life and the way the materials that get in batteries are mined, et cetera. But I'm just thinking, and hearing the most recent report on climate, and trying to be responsive to that at the smallest level that we are. So that's all. Okay,
Yeah, and
thanks.
I think, to your point, I think looking out a number of years, we should be thinking about if the board wants to replace fleet trucks, there's a lot of money out there to do big trucks too.
Yeah.
But I mean, the firefighters would have a different side of it because they've had recent electric vehicle fires that take 5 times as long to put out, 4 times as much water.
Yeah,
And
that paints a different picture.
Dwayne said they're even
They're also
having some of
100
those electric scooters are causing fires in buildings in Philadelphia.
Say that, Michelle?
Yeah, they're hotter, they're a hotter fire.
Yeah,
They-
that's what I
they were
understand.
saying they were-
burn very
they-
hot.
They can't touch, yeah, the
You
lithium
can't put it
battery,
out, you just wait.
You have to let
They
it
have to
go.
wait, they have to wait it out.
Cools down.
But for the record, West Goshen's Police Department has a Ford Lightning truck and a Tesla.
Yeah.
Do they?
So Just,
Yeah.
yeah.
And they
That's
also
wonderful.
just also approved, the
They've got
board just
charging
approved
stations.
20
They got a
EV
charging station.
charging stations at the township building.
Well, how are they gonna buy electricity?
Hmm.
Are they gonna put solar panels on the ceiling, on the roof? Because
wouldn't
the
surprise me if
electricity-
they
John,
did
you
that.
keep saying that, and if you buy from Pico, only about, I think 30% of Pico energy comes from carbon, and 70% is coming from alternative energy.
Oh,
right now.
nonsense.
That's true, absolutely.
It's absolutely not true.
Absolutely true.
I checked them a
And
couple
you
months
can,
ago.
and you can go to NRG services and you can buy 100% renewable, so we could change.
That would be fine, but
yeah.
that cost, the last time we looked at it, it cost twice as much.
Where you check, no, no,
It was 12 cents to 6 cents.
no, you're thinking of something else.
Pico's
That's
up now
not-
to 10 cents.
Yeah.
Per kilowatt hour.
We'll fact check the Pico
Natural
carbon,
gas is worse.
because I did some research into that, so, that's, something to, look at.
Well, I
Mr.
think
Chair,
if we can get some verification, and I'm respecting what David is saying and John's concern, to try and close that gap of information.
maybe you can find out some information so we could have it in front of us so that we can think about these component aspects with what the market is out there. I think that will be helpful when you get a chance.
Mr.
And that
Chairman,
way- I agree, yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the receipts and approve the expenditures as presented in the
fine.
expenditure register and as summarized in the treasurer's report.
Say it again. Say it again.
I'd love to second that.
Thank you. It was a
All
mess,
right.
but thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Eric, no? Nobody on the Zoom? Let's call the question then. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0.
Thanks,
Um,
Dave.
John, according to Exelon 10K report, about half of Pico's power comes from nuclear energy. 12% comes from fossil fuels and renewable sources, and the remaining 35% comes from other supplies.
Okay, well, that's a different thing than you said. Nuclear scares me more than anything. Because they take those spent rods out and they have to bury them somewhere.
Some of the new nuclear, the mini plants are highly efficient and don't have the same problems. They're old.
You wouldn't want to put one of the old rods from that in your
I was
pocket.
evacuated 3 Mile Island, melted down.
I remember that. I remember that very well. All right, well, we'll look into that further. I'll back off if it's really pure, but nuclear doesn't do it either. Let's move on. Old business, we have none. New business, we have the rapid flashers.
Yep. Thank-
And Derek, where did this come from?
So this came from essentially over the last better part of a year, I've gotten various inquiries on both the East Goshen Park eastern entrance, as well as the Ellis Lane right near the East High School, where the flasher, currently the 24/7 flashers are right now. So there's been some residential inquiries and concerns about both areas. One, our park, where there's a lot of people crossing, as Mark kind of laid out here, per day. And the current ones just don't do it for a number of reasons. People forget to push the buttons. It's kind of the way it is. It's just a lot going on visually there. So it's tough to keep an eye on it. And then a different reason for the high school area. A lot of people that contacted me concerned, and actually for that one, there was also some non-East Goshen residents that contacted me because they knew, I guess they found out through the grapevine that we control the intersection there as far as maintenance. But there was concerns that because of the 24/7 nature of the flashing, that people just ignore it because it's just there all the time. So it was brought to me as far as, hey, can we do something as far as the flashing at the courthouse? It's called the rapid flashing. So it's a technology where it detects motion from humans, and the flashing goes off as soon as they start crossing the street, as soon as the camera starts recognizing them. So it's essentially a effort-free crossing on the residence part if they're going through the park. Same thing at the high school. That would be a similar system. Mark did go through some preliminary channels at PennDOT. They don't seem to have an issue with it. We didn't get final approval from PennDOT. I think that memo doesn't make that clear, but I didn't want to go further because there's a financial component of this that's, pretty steep for a replacement and putting those rapid flashers in. Again, we're talking about two intersections here. Well, one's a crossing, not an intersection. That's at the park, the eastern entrance, and then the Ellis Lane, where East High School is, the Price Field. So that's where it originated. And I think enough people brought it to my attention where I think it's really a policy / financial decision by the board at this
I'll
point.
make a quick comment or two. Number one, the Greater Philadelphia Bike Coalition just finished 4 miles of extension of the Chester Valley Trail. One of the intersections has this remote. It's really pretty cool. As you ride up to it on your bicycle, it actually talks to you and says, you have activated the flasher, please be careful across the intersection.
Oh, I gotta say.
So
What
it-
color does it flash?
Yellow, right?
It's,
Yellow.
yeah, I mean,
Yellow,
it's multiple LED flashing lights that, are on a.
It's almost a strobe effect when it hits
Yeah,
you.
it's
If
very
you're in
bright.
courthouse, you know that.
That's number one. Number two is, and I may have mentioned this in another meeting, but I went down recently and sat in the bank parking lot across from Fugit Middle School and the high school at 2:30 in the afternoon. And that intersection is an accident waiting to happen. Kids are running across Paley Pike, not at the intersection. The cars aren't stopping at the intersection.
Just to be
this is-
clear though, Dave, this wouldn't be at
This is
that
not really-
intersection.
Well,
Yeah.
This is up a little
That's what I
further.
thought.
yeah, that's
I
what,
just
yeah.
make-
But I'm just saying that the kids are crossing the street, not at the intersections, and anything we can do to, and I like the idea of working with the Westchester Area
Me
School
too.
District to have them pay majority of the cost on that one, so.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
like
would
they
agree with
did in-
David. We opened up a
Like they did in
conversation on that
a
one.
school
with the
resource
students.
operator.
Yeah.
Yeah, officer. Other comments?
I'm very amenable to putting this in at the park. I think it's, the pedestrians down there are unpredictable. They don't press the button all the time. I've seen it happen time and time and time again.
I've done both myself as a pedestrian.
Very
there.
frustrating.
Sometimes I pushed it and I tried to look both ways and go, but if, senior, I'm not paying attention, I could be smacked. But I've also pushed the button and I've had the experience, I think that Eric referenced, where on one occasion, I mentioned it to Eric today, 2 cars came speeding by
Yeah.
after it was pushed and it was clearly operating.
Yeah,
And it was, if you were just, and we see individuals that are not paying attention. They say, well, they're not, it's my turn to go across and they're not paying attention. And so I've actually done it both ways. And I agree that I think it would be probably beneficial. My only comment is, I know we've done well with the snow budget this year. It's been one of my reminders of prior years in budgeting, but I know we've done well. I don't know what that translates into, and knowing that we've got the November third quarter portion of this year ahead of us, and who knows what that will bring, but short of having an unexpected expenditure in the budget this year, if we had the available funds to reallocate to purchase it, I could support it this year. If not, I'm a little uncomfortable with, did I see 37,000 or did I see
Estimated 34,000.
34,000?
Piece.
And certainly would support it in next year's budget, but I'm interested with what my colleagues, and that's all due respect to Eric, who took the time to send us an email and a pic with it.
well, like I was saying, I'm very much amenable to putting this in at the park. I think that's a crucial place. There are people who have run across without pushing the button, and they're taking their life in their hands. This will at least help to cut that down. I'm also amenable to seeing it go in over on Ellis Lane, as long as I don't have to have only the East Goshen Township taxpayers paying for it.
Well, you said
And
this was the
again-
intersection we're talking about. That's the intersection I was talking about.
No, it's
Ellis
right on
Lane.
Ellis
That's
Lane.
where I sat.
No, it's
No.
not the intersection, it's further up. right
It's
across
further
the
up.
two
It's on
schools and the
Ellis Lane
fields.
across
It's on
from the
Ellis
fields.
Lane.
It's right up,
Crossing.
it's up top and that, when you go up the
Oh,
hill.
on the top of the.
At the
Yeah.
top of the hill.
Yeah,
I
You're
thought-
talking not on Paley Pike.
No.
But David, I thought it
No.
was on.
No, that's why I was
Bailey Pike.
confirming with
No.
Derek.
That's where it's dangerous.
Well,
Ellis
it's
Lane.
dangerous on
Yeah,
both.
we already
both
have-
of them.
Both of them with the kind of, the amount of traffic.
The problem is that the students are crossing up at Ellis Lane to go over to Price Fields for all of their activities.
Yeah.
And there was, I know, a situation back in the fall, and there was a near miss at that particular crossing. And thank God there was somebody there there were band parents there waving flashlights in the dusk while they were band practice. And it could have been a very tragic situation, and the parents fortunately were out there. But again, it's not up to the East Goshen taxpayers to pay for something that is going to benefit the entire school district. Well, not the entire school district, but a school district building that actually, 2 buildings that service more than East Goshen Township. So
So for tonight, is our action is to firm up pricing and talk further with PennDOT on the.
Well, let's take one at a time, I guess. What I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong.
well,
for-
Cody hasn't gotten a chance. to
Okay,
put
go
anything.
ahead.
No, I was just gonna suggest that we pay for the one at the park and then ask the staff to talk to the school district and see if
Yep.
if they can pay for it, and then the maintenance aspect, I know was worked on with Mark in the past, so go
Well,
ahead.
the latter one is what I was gonna say is for the one, I can reach out to the school district and have conversations and see their appetite for working with us on this and in what capacity and see exactly, how much they would be willing to, contribute to something.
And to pick up on that particular aspect of it, with both the school district and also, I know we're talking about up on Ellis Lane over the rise. But the intersection itself there with Paley Pike and Ellis Lane, if there's further, I don't know, something further we can do. I know the trail's not coming in there. That could have possibly been some amelioration to it, but it's a bad intersection. I don't know whether, so go ahead.
2 points in that. One, I have to check to see if that is actually our traffic signal.
Oh, that's
because-
great. You said it might be.
Because
West Goshen.
so on the perimeters of the township, we kind of rotate who has what. So like West Goshen has some, we have some. I had thought that was West Goshen, but I have to check that further. And then I don't know, second, I don't know how the rapid flashers work in conjunction with a full-blown traffic signal. I've never seen it. So I'd have to see that, but I'd have to see if that's even our signal, because I don't know if that's.
I
So that's a
thought-
separate conversation apart from this other element that there seems to be. Is there general
Well,
board
Mark said it.
consensus that the one for the
What?
park crossing at Paley Pike is something that we
Change
want to
Yes,
further?
yes. We're
Well,
all, I
Mark
think
said
we
that
all
they
would
have
like
a-
to see that. When you mention the other one and talk about talking to the school district, you should be talking to West Goshen too, I think, shouldn't you?
Well, I think you're gonna find that out when you determine who owns what or who's taking care of what.
Yeah.
Okay.
The one at
mean,
Ellis
yeah.
Lane, Paley Pike, I think Mark did go through that with the PA, DEP, didn't they?
Or you mean PennDOT?
The PennDOT.
For the
And-
traffic signals?
I
It's got a-
think,
yeah,
I think
it's
they
got a light
indicated
there.
that if there's a full-blown traffic signal, they would not do flashers. I
No,
thought that's what the guy
Oh,
said.
no, but that's at the park. We're talking the one down at the high school with Ellis Lane.
no, he's correct. He's talking-
Excuse
yeah,
me.
yeah.
Excuse me.
No, that's correct, but we don't think the full-blown traffic signal up the hill would meet warrants for PennDOT. That's.
Oh,
that's the
I agree.
provider.
I think that the
Yeah.
traffic there,
Yeah,
no.
but I'm talking about the specific ownership of the
Yeah,
traffic signals
right.
on Bailey Pike.
Okay,
So-
you'll work into that.
I was gonna talk to the school district for the other one. We could go one of two ways. You could approve, I mean, it sounds like everybody's amenable depending on. I can work up, you don't have to take a motion and we can work, Dave and I can work to see a plan for actually paying for it, or you can, if you're comfortable with the 34,000, you can vote to, approve that installation based on the.
I think it would probably come out of capital funds, because that's
Well, I
gonna be
would
something that
expect,
we would
yeah.
maintain.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't really be the snow budget, but we could allocate if we had an additional monies in excess, we could put that.
So I'll talk to the school district. The other one is up to you guys. You need 3 out of 5
Replace it,
members
yeah.
to.
Mr. Chairman,
No, yeah.
I'm gonna take a stab at this. I'd like to make a motion that we install the RRFB crossing at no more, that will not exceed $34,391 at the park entrance on Paoli Pike. And I ask that staff will begin to discuss partnering with the Westchester Area School District for the same installation at Paoli Pike and Ellis Lane.
No. Ellis Lane
Only
above
Ellis
Paoli
Lane.
Pike.
Well, so
Sorry, yes. To for instance, to begin discussing with the school district just about the Ellis Lane.
at
portion.
Price Field, you could say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pricefield, that's good.
My apologies.
Any seconds?
Second.
Okay, we have a second, 2 seconds. Any other comment?
Yes.
I'm asking Eric now.
Oh, sorry.
Eric was nice enough to write a long.
You're getting what you asked for. Do you have any more comment?
Okay, before we vote, Mike, do you want to?
I just want to ask one question of Dave and Derek. With this additional expenditure, is there a need for a budget amendment?
10%.
That's, it's in the second class code. I don't know whether it qualifies for a budget amendment or
Doesn't
not.
change anything by more than 10%, does it?
That's for the
Well,
budget per se.
Do you know where you're gonna take the money from at this point?
What's the
You don't
line?
know the line item that you're gonna take it from yet. So I think you can cross that bridge when you come to it.
Okay.
The money, you
I
have
just
the
wanted to
money
ask the
and you
question.
can, you can do the budget amendment once you figure out where it's gonna come
Yeah,
from.
we can do a resolution at
Yeah.
the time of, yeah, okay.
Good,
Yeah, I
Good.
just wanted to make sure that.
okay. I'll call the question then. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
Where-
Going great. Appointment of new poet laureates.
I'll make a motion to, yeah, and whatever, let's say, excuse me. I think it's great. I think it's great stuff, and I move to recommend Richard Duns and Ethan Alschel to Township Poet Laureate appointments for the years 23 and 24.
I'll second.
All right. Any comment?
No.
Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
And is that the son of?
Yes.
Yes,
That's great. Terrific.
and apparently he's a real nice kid.
And he
I'm
writes
sure he
great poetry.
Yeah, that's terrific. Well, John is, if he wasn't so tied up in numbers, he could be poetic and just.
All right. Number 11, standing issues, Milltown Dam, Derek?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So when I was here, when we were at the last meeting, I actually told the board I would have a resolution tonight to go forward with the new grant swap out, so to speak. It turns out I don't because we don't need it. So I was being told because nothing's really changing as far as the language of the resolution, as far as who's in charge of signing, what the scope is. We did need a new resolution for that.
Good.
So this is kind of wanted to use this as a speak now or forever hold your peace type of moment, because I plan on going forward with the swap out of the $500,000. And again, it's just going to be exactly like the land conservation water fund grant worked.
Go.
And it's it's requiring everything the same. Everything's basically the same. It's just a new funding source. So that's just an FYI. If there's any comments, that's fine. But I just wanted to bring it up since I said there would be a resolution, but then I found out we don't need one. So-
Same obligations. that we
Same
would have with
obligation.
grant-
Yep.
Grant.
Okay.
It goes from
Or
federal
we
money
grant
to,
it.
We
goes from
voted
federal
on
money to
this.
state money.
We
Yep.
voted on this in a prior meeting. Does anybody want to change their vote?
No.
Okay, it's,
Okay.
okay, then
Other-
you're
Yep.
free to go ahead.
Yep. And so I'm hoping we get done rather quickly because they're going to be simultaneously reviewing the bid documents and
Great.
Yeah, they
Great.
said that they would, I talked to Mark, who's the DCNR manager on the phone. Because it had financial implications to the 2022 statements as far as our single federal audit, going from federal to state now. And the receivables we'd accrued on engineering
Oh.
fees already expended. So there was more things involved than we thought.
Yeah.
But the long story short is that we can still get engineering expenses. It's going to start in January 1st, 2023, give us the 2 years. Mally's going to take care of it on our audit side, and it's in the DCNR offices. We should have a copy in 10 days.
Oh,
Or less.
that's fine. So you did that homework and got that. That's good.
Sounds good.
Getting those ducks in a row.
All right, next item, Hershey's Mill Estates.
yeah, we
Oh,
don't,
that's done great.
yeah, we,
Yes, it is.
as I said last time, they basically all the pipes in the ground, restoration work.
Another
Well,
month
yeah,
or so.
yeah, I mean, as the grass should be coming up here soon, and
Yeah,
things of that
yeah.
nature, probably have some odds and ends, but no updates from the previous one.
Oh, it's good news. Okay, any other matter?
Yeah, I have one quick question. So Derek, I had asked you before, is there any chance that we can get rid of this last page on the agenda?
Yes, we can.
Can we start that soon?
Yeah,
Because,
I forgot about it, quite honestly. So if everybody's okay with it, we can do that. You want
I mean,
that
it's just, there's
after the dates, right?
after the dates, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And the
dates are
dates,
good.
the dates are good because
Yep.
it's a good reminder for all of us,
Okay.
but the
Yep.
other stuff, it can be found on our website. We don't need to kill a tree.
That's fine.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Sorry about that.
Anybody else? Public comment? Public comment on Zoom? Seeing none? Oh, wait a minute. Did something come up there?
No, it was just my mouse moving.
Okay, okay. Liaison reports?
I don't have anything from municipal authority except that Derek just kind of gave the bulk of it with the contractor the contractor for the Hershey's Mill Estate Sewer Project performed very effectively so far. Did a great job. I think there were I don't think there was a single complaint from any residents up there. They were all appreciative.
Pretty amazing, actually, the workers greeted people when they saw them on the street, walking their dogs and so on. I mean, I don't know who trained their workers in
But
labor, but
they
they
were-
were
yeah.
unbelievable.
What's
to
the name of the outfit that did this work?
Definitely not from South Philly, if that's.
No, they're Maryland. It's,
All right, well, I don't need to know it, but keep their card.
they were awesome.
Great job.
That's very.
It's a
nice
good
to hear.
recommendation
Allowed
from
to say that.
Zanoni's
Yeah.
engineer.
Yeah.
One other thing, the MA made a good decision and the board made a good decision to move forward without
Yes.
the grant money
Yes.
and get this done at a cheaper cost because we never got that grant for that project.
We were gonna get.
We didn't get the grant. Oh, geez.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
got it,
that-
we got it for Bow Tree Pond instead.
Dave, I'm glad you mentioned that because it turned out there was a little bit.
But can't we still
of-
get it?
Yeah.
We can go back for it.
What they didn't explain is that on the local share fund grants, they tell you to submit as many different projects, adding up to a max of $1 million, but they only award one to you. And that's what they told Derek, and yet I saw multiple townships with multiple project wins, so.
Get screwed out of that.
Somebody
yeah.
in government lied.
The local
Apparently.
share is-
It's a tricky slope.
And the one was the Bow Tree then?
Yep.
Okay,
Oh,
good,
well,
good. Other liaison reports? Good. Correspondence? We don't have correspondence?
Mr. Chairman, before I make a motion, I'd like to thank Bill Christman for his 15 months of service as our solicitor.
Yeah, Bill.
Oh, I don't get, don't press it, will you? Come on, we just gave you a round of.
I think
You did great.
I think the other one was taller. You're right. No.
You did, oh,
sad.
you did great. and Best of luck in your new role.
Yeah,
Enjoyed my time.
Great.
you'll come back on your knees.
With that, I'd like to make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Let's get out of here.